And okay.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 63 of Comic Beat Insider. That's that weekly podcast that Heidi McDonald and I started last year on lockdown, covering pretty much whatever we want to do. So with that in mind, this is K-pop month. You knew it was coming because I've fallen down that deep well the past couple of years. And joining Heidi and I, I'm Jimmy Aquino of Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture.
I'm Heidi McDonald, the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com, the news site of comics culture.
And joining us today is he has a YouTube channel with creator of it and also hosts it as well called The Asian Theory, covering all things Asian and a lot of K-pop. Also, he was a writer of a new children's book called Is the Man the Little Filipino Hero, which is awesome. You guys should definitely check that out and go get that. Please welcome Paul Bacera. Hey, Paul.
Hey,
welcome.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, thanks
Glad
so
to be
much,
with
man.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time.
Join us.
And arranging your schedule to be part of this hugely important podcast.
So let me just jump in here and just say this is the moment that Comic Beat Insider has been building to for all 62 previous weeks.
That's right.
Because Jimmy talks about K-pop, references K-pop, sends
I can only talk in K-pop gifs.
Yes, he does only talk in K-pop. And so, we talked about doing this and the time is here. K-pop month.
That's right.
July 2020.
And what better way to start it off with just like a little history, a little K-pop 101, little history. Paul's been into it much longer than I have. Like I said, I've been a couple years from me. Heidi's very noob about it. Paul, tell us when you started getting into it. What drew you to K-pop?
Oh man, it's probably been either 10 or 11 years now.
Wow, amazing.
That I got into K-pop. So the first group that really got me into K-pop was this group called A-Pink. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I know A-Pink. Yeah,
they're an older second generation group.
JYP, right?
They're actually at the time they were under A-Cube, which was kind of like a subsidiary of Cube, not really, but they were related to Cube. But yeah, A-Pink.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny because the first time I actually heard K-pop was actually a couple months earlier, and someone introduced me to a bunch of boy groups.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I didn't really vibe with me because it's something that's new and foreign to someone, and for a person their automatic response to that is they're gonna shy away from something that's foreign and something that's strange to them.
What are they saying?
Of course, and of course that was my reaction to it. I'm like, I don't know about this. This is a little weird. But then I was randomly on YouTube. I don't even know how I got onto it. I got onto like A-Pink and Girls' Generation.
Yeah.
And then the moment I saw A-Pink and Girls' Generation, that is when I fell in love. And since then, I am still listening to K-pop. Yeah. Someone told me that it was going to be like a fad and a trend, but it's been 10 years, so I don't know when that's going to end.
Exactly, yeah. Well, like any new music form, they said that about rap, they said that about rock, they said that about all sorts of music styles, and they're still around,
Yeah,
so it's definitely got lasting thing.
But wait, Jimmy, what was your introduction to K-pop?
So I think definitely years ago, I remember John Hosh, who's been another a Filipino brother of ours, Paul, my friend of John Hosh, who's been on many of our podcasts. He's an actor. He had done a show. He wrote a superhero style like play. He starred in, and it had some sort of K-pop, something to do with K-pop about Girls' Generation. I was like, oh, they're really cool, but I didn't really get into it. And then of course, 2012, the entire world got knocked over by Psy's Gangnam Style. So, but that's still like I checked out a couple things and still didn't get into it. It was when Blackpink appeared on the Colbert Show here in America. I believe it was 2019.
Blackpink, by the way.
Yeah, I believe it was 2019. And I was recording the show for, I think John Oliver was on. It's like, oh, I want to record John Oliver. Him and Steven are funny together, and whoever Blackpink is, sure. And they come out with their giant hit. What is it? 1.4 billion views now on YouTube, I think, of the song. Do, which just sounds weird, but when you hear it, you're like, God damn, that's a banger. And these four beautiful young women, ages 22 to 23, 24, come out. And you're like, well, okay, they're stunning, they're beautiful. oh my God, that song's really good. I couldn't stop. So I immediately, like that night, I looked them up, watched the video. The video is insane. Most K-pop videos are insanely like high budgeted. And like Jenny comes out in a damn mirror ball encrusted tank at one point. It's like, oh my God, unbelievable. You're like, what's happening? And it's just such high production values. And then the next morning they were on Good Morning America, and I watched them there, and you sort of heard them talk, and you learned that a couple of them actually like Australia, New Zealand, the group, and they spoke English well, um, and you really sort of saw their personalities, and then I was hooked. But only on them, and I started looking up things, and I started watching variety shows they were on. They had a reality show they did called Blackpink House, which I watched the whole series. On YouTube. It's English translations, and you got to know the personalities. You're like, wow, they're really sweet and adorable and nice and smart and clearly very talented, and their backgrounds, how they came together, is interesting. And then from there, like the YouTube suggestions popped up. If you like Blackpink, you might like Twice. I'm like,
Oh
oh,
boy.
okay, let me
Yep.
try it.
Google
Let me check out
algorithm.
Twice.
Fell down the
You might
rabbit
like that.
hole.
And then of course we all, 2017 BTS. I'd heard of it that back then too, and thought they were really great, but didn't really get into it. But Blackpink was my gateway drug.
No, once you get infected, you can't get out.
Well,
That's true.
I
The rabbit hole just keeps going down deeper and
I
deeper.
can see that is happening to me already because
Nice.
so Jimmy said now, so of course, someone who works in the pop culture sphere, I'm certainly aware that pop bands in Korea were really, really huge. And actually, I think it was Becky Cloonan, the cartoonist, and this is like a while ago. This is more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
Like she mentioned that that's what she was really into now was Korean pop bands. And I'm like, oh,
Nice.
okay. And so, and as Jimmy knows, I live in Manhattan. I quite close to K-Town, so I go there all the time. And of course, you can't miss the beautiful standees of the boy bands who are, modeling the skincare. And I'm a huge Korean.
Or even like the chicken, like Mamamoo has like the resales there. Have Mamamoo with the chicken there. I'm like, oh
yeah. They're all endorsing them. So of course I've been aware of how huge it is. But didn't get into it because I'm pretty set in my ways in my music likes. I like electronic music. So however, so Jimmy gave us some for me some
homework.
And I did the homework. I watched a couple of these documentaries about the history of K-pop, and Google has actually done a 6-part series, I guess, on the history of K-pop. And I had it on this morning because I'm
YouTube,
cramming. Yes, YouTube. Pardon me.
Same company. Yeah.
And I had it on while I was doing some chores, and because I'm always cramming for this. And then I was like, oh, this is too interesting. I need to sit down and watch this. So because it's an incredible story. I mean, first off, I will say, just as somebody who's really of course I know who BTS is. Of course I know who Blackpink is. But Gangnam Style. I mean, I know those 3 things, which and the
those are big.
a normal, American into pop culture music might know of those 3 things. But just as of my very quick indoctrination into this obsession, I totally see why it's so easy to be obsessed with it because Jimmy and I did a whole month of musicals, and we both love singing and dancing, and obviously
I used to do it for a living, so yeah.
Yes, and you did it for a living, and the performance quality is off the charts. The dancing is the choreography, the whole presentation is absolutely mind-boggling.
Amazing.
It's and I can it's just pure like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. It's just mesmerizing once you start watching some of these performances. So absolutely, I was right. Do you not understand the words? Okay, is it a different language? Yes. Speaks the language.
Doesn't matter.
It's like
that's how it gets you.
Yeah, it's like you watch. Spanish music became very popular here in America. Despacito is one of the biggest hits in years, and most of it's in Spanish, and or a lot of it's in Spanish, and then you get like opera. Everyone go to Italian operas, and German operas. It's like doesn't matter. It's telling a story. I remember a friend of mine when I sent her like one of my favorite songs is this beautiful ballad by Mamamoo called "I Miss You." And now most K-pop groups, there's a smattering of, right, Paul, a little smattering of English in almost every song, right, Paul?
Yeah.
Like usually a little bit. And so I sent it to her. I'm like, wow, this really made me think of you. And we dated back in the day, blah, blah. It's really beautiful. She's like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. I really wish it was in English. I'm like, I don't. I like that. It's, I think the inflection of certain words, and it's like when you watch a foreign film, I'd rather watch the original language and read the subtitles. So you hear the inflection more of what these people, what they want to say. And
a man of culture.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
You like your subs better than your dubs.
Yeah,
subs,
that's
subs,
right.
not
subs
dubs.
over dubs. That's right. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
If anyone's a dub person, they're welcome to leave the room right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Goodbye.
please turn off this video. Stop watching.
That's right. But it is. Yeah, I think it's interesting that just the phenomena how it happened, and we're going to talk about that. So and Paul probably would know a lot more than this. I'm just going on what I read and saw like this, but he's been in it for years. But if I'm correct, it's like, obviously there's the Korean War, and from the Korean War, some US troops were stationed in Korea. So a lot of bands started like playing Western music to sort of like play for them. You get these early rock bands and close to pop bands, but the traditional music that was played for years, even now it's made a resurgence in Korea, I think, was like sort of their traditional music, and then this musical style called trot, which I guess is that, Paul, was that sort of like country music in a sense over here, maybe?
As the way I understand it, it's kind of like their slower ballad type of music.
Yeah.
It's called trot, which is, I guess, different than our Western trot music.
Yeah. Definitely.
Western trot music is more of like a dancing music, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say it sounds like something that's.
I think the term trot came from Japan, but like most things, I think it's created.
Yeah. But South Korean trot is different than Western trot. It's got more of a ballad, slow type of feel, very mushy love songs.
Yeah, kind of country-esque, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
US. Yeah. But that was the norm. That was the most popular music, and it also because quickly South Korea turned into a dictatorship, thankfully very shortly, for a short term, I mean. And so they started like arresting rock bands, and like censoring music, and none of that could be played. And it wasn't until and there were still groups that were forming and playing. You had these little rock bands, 70s and 80s, even like heavily influenced by jazz and soul and American, psychedelic rock from the 60s and 70s. And then finally, I think in 87 was when democracy happened, thankfully, and after all the protests and the fighting back. And that's when things started really opening up. Like the 88 Olympics, a lot of people said it made Koreans feel like they're part of the world now, finally. And things started happening, like Itaewon, which you've probably heard of that city. There's all these part of it's like the hot spot in Seoul, for clubs, became the hot spot, and all these different influences from all over the world happened. And then I think it was 92 and we saw a few groups sort of experimenting, coming close to sort of the idea of what became K-pop, but it wasn't. I think it's pretty universally agreed upon that it's Setajian Boys in 1992. This trio came out, and they were like, "What is happening?" Like the adults are like, "This is terrible." They were on some TV show, and the adults are like, "It seemed like you were more interested in the dancing than the singing," which is hilarious. And then, but the public was like, "This is new and different. We love it," and embraced it. And it's sort of like Seitaji, and like one of the guys in the band who became very well was Young Hyun Suk, who started YG Entertainment, who is Blackpink's company, and Big Bang and 21 and those like that.
Well, let me jump in here with one of my questions for you too, because it's obviously the 90s were a big time for boy bands. In the US, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, but in Korea,
New Kids on the Block.
Yeah, New Kids. Yeah, I always forget about that. I don't know why. They were a little before my time, I guess.
In KOTB.
Yeah,
before your time. What? We're the same age.
Because there's a total segue why I say that. But when I worked at Disney Adventures magazine, we covered New Kids on the Block and Backstreet Boys all the time. So, or not New Kids, like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, but New Kids on the Block was
before that. Yes.
Disney Adventures. So that's,
I see. Okay.
Yeah. But and just like here, like we have the impresarios who put together the groups. So in Korea, like there are these huge companies, right, that are like the Simon Cowells, to use a analogy that most people would get. And they're like, as their two rivals, or who are the big players among the companies?
So they actually have a term for the big companies in K-pop, and they're referred to as the big three, quote unquote.
Though now became the big four, but yes, the big three originally, basically, in a sense, right?
Kind of. The big three, people
original
usually refer to it the big three and Big Hit, or the big three and Hybe. And so the big three would be the three biggest entertainment companies in K-pop, which is JYP, YG, which Jimmy mentioned earlier, and SM. And then now, thanks to BTS, there's a new player, I guess, in the companies that's actually bigger than the big three now, which is Big Hit or Hybe. And they're the people that make BTS, TXT, GFriend, 17,
which
bunch of other groups.
Which is interesting, because when BTS got started, they did come from this very small kind of upstart company.
Oh, Big Hit, almost went bankrupt.
They were tiny.
Like
it's a miracle that BTS is the way that they are now. Like BTS is one of the greatest Cinderella stories in K-pop.
Yeah, it really is. Like they started off more rap and hip hop oriented, and then but what really I think appealed to people was the lyrics. Dealt with real life issues and things like that, and then they slowly started transforming into more, getting a little more pop into them. But their early stuff, I love their early stuff, but it's pretty different from what they do now. There's definitely still see a lot of it, but yeah, they say now BTS, obviously a global phenomenon, brings in $5 billion to the Korean industry. So they're like numbers top 5, top 10 of the economic growth of South Korea, them alone. That's incredible, the influence and reach that they have. Yeah.
But these companies, the big three were active in the 90s too. Did they manufacture the bands, or were they?
Well, it's interesting though, for a couple of them, is that I think probably one of the biggest influence was SM Entertainment. The guy that runs it, Lee Soo-min, was a singer himself back in the day, in the 60s and 70s, that. And then he left, went to America to work in finance or something like that, and got heavily influenced by watching Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson and New Kids on the Block, and came back and was like, I have an idea. But then he came back, he got back in entertainment as an MC, as a host for TV shows, and then started a label. He's actually the one, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, he's sort of the one that sort of introduced the sort of idol system.
Kind of, yeah, pretty much. And it started with a group called HOT, which was basically New Kids on the Block was basically his I guess model figure for the K-pop groups in Korea. And so HOT was Korea's version of New Kids on the Block.
High five of teenagers, HOT. That's what it stood for. Yeah, no, it's interesting because
just a way to spell hot.
Right. Yeah, that too. Yeah. No, but I remember him. I'm watching some old clip. He introduces them. And he's like, high five of teenagers. I'm like, okay. Interesting, sure. But he while Setaji and Boys is the ones that introduced this new sound of it's very New Jack Swing sound, which I still think sort of is very prevalent in K-pop. And New Jack Swing, for those who don't remember, in the 80s was giant and huge, and I loved it. It was Bobby Brown, one of my favorite groups, New Edition, BBD, they came out of it, where they had rap in every song. And to this day, almost every K-pop song has a rapper, has rap in it in every song, but it works. Yeah, but it really, I think, with HOT, well, Setaji and Boys introduced it, HOT is considered probably the first real sort of idol K-pop group, I think. If that's correct, I think that they're considered that. And they're really fun to watch because they do, it's so 90s, it's with the hair, and then they had these flashy outfits that they became fashion icons. It's pretty crazy to watch. It's pretty fun. I like it.
Definitely. But I mean, at this point it wasn't global. It was still very much,
very much still contained to Korea.
Very much contained in Korea. Yeah.
I sort of liken the system that Lee Soo-min helped create to the old Hollywood studio system, because back in the 30s, 40s, you were an actor and you were signed to a studio. You only did film to that studio unless you your studio agreed to lend you to another studio, and you took acting classes. You took, maybe dance and voice, especially during the musical era, and you took, poise and whatever those type of, manners types classes, things like this, especially for the misogynistic world it was and still is. For women, they do like, how to act like a lady, things like that. Those type of classes, and so that's what it reminded me of. It still does, like, oh, that's the old Hollywood system. So maybe he was slightly influenced by that as well. But we went from, I'd say, like HIT, like I said, was sort of the big group, and that just sort of opened the floodgates, I feel, where and quickly these, as Paul was just saying, these companies were formed. Isuman forms SM Entertainment. YG, Young Kyung Suk, who is part of Sertaji and Boys, starts a company, and he's more hip hop oriented. And then JYP, also Jin Young Park, was a performer himself as well, solo performer and writer. He formed his company. So that's when they all sort of formed, I think, year after, I'm like 1 year after each other, and just started releasing groups, and they would constantly compete against each other, solo artists, groups, etc. I'm not sure what company she was with, but even like Young, the movie Peninsula we covered, Heidi. She was the mother in it.
Oh, right.
The one that was like, she was like
considered she was like she was like the K-pop
the
star.
dance. She was like the dance queen of Korea at the
Right.
time.
So that had
the techno queen of Korea.
So
And she had
that gave
little,
it
that little move she did with her finger on her lip.
So that had a little added, like added
meaning
if you knew her K-pop past.
Yeah, but this started opening sort of the floodgates, and they sort of split it into generations, and there was sort of how does that work? The generation, I'm still confused on this, Paul. The generations, do you know?
So generations, they're just different, I guess, periods of K-pop history. So this would be considered the first generation of K-pop when K-pop first started. So obviously Sotaiji, HOT, and then you also have groups like SES, Finkel, Baby Vox, TVXQ, God, and those were kind of the groups that established the first generation, just like the foundations and the beginnings of K-pop. And then once K-pop got a little bigger, it started, having a little bit more international reach. This is when we enter a phase called the second generation. And you've probably heard names like Big Bang, Girls' Generation, 21, Super Junior, Shiny. These were the groups that kind of made up the second generation. And then once K-pop got a little bigger, that's when we transitioned to the third generation. And that's the big groups that are right now. Are pretty much all of the big groups that are famous in K-pop right now are all third generation groups. It's Twice, Blackpink, Red Velvet, BTS, EXO. These are all third generation groups,
and they're very global, right? They're all they're known.
They're all the groups that have really pushed K-pop into that international I guess zone. And then the new groups that are coming out right now would be our fourth generation groups like ITZY,
Luna.
Where will it go?
Pretty much anyone that's coming out currently would be our new fourth generation groups.
Yeah, it's interesting because there were like transitions. Sometimes they call this is 1.5 generation or this is 2.5 because there were transitions between sort of generations of what was happening. And especially what was interesting between sort of 1 and 2, they had that big financial crisis, the IMF that happened in '97, International Money Fund, which crashed every other business, and but the entertainment business got hit hard, but they rose out of it because of people that actually had, because at the time, a lot of companies like Samsung were trying to form music labels, but they had no musical background. So the ones that had actual musical background, like Lee So-min and these guys, knew what they were doing. They survived it and thrived out of it because they actually had musical backgrounds, knew what to do.
Let me go back. Wait. I just want to dig into that just a little bit more because I love these stories of corporations who don't know how to do things.
So many.
I know. Well, it's so proven. So at this point, and my understanding is that the second generation also was a little bit more experimental and a little bit more like musically adventurous, I guess. I mean, it was expanding. It was expanding its sound and more songwriter, more singer-songwriters were involved, and they weren't just the prefab groups. But so I guess at that point when this financial crisis happened, so like there were the big three, but like Samsung was also trying to create
Yeah,
idols, trying to
yeah.
create, and it didn't work, or
company,
what happened?
Yeah.
They just sucked.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was just like these big companies. Everyone, like anything becomes popular, they want to dip their toes in it, but don't really know what they're doing. so, so I think after that happened, they like, let's just cut our losses and deal with what we know about. I'm
Mm.
assuming that's what happened, right, Paul?
I actually don't know the story behind
Yeah.
with Samsung, but there
Yeah, I don't
were a
know
lot
much
of
either.
big
Yeah.
corporations that were successful in creating their own
Yeah.
idol systems. I mean, an example is Kakao.
Oh,
They're a
fair
big,
enough. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, they're a big company,
Yeah.
and they're the ones that make Kakao Talk and just a bunch of other things. But
Yeah.
they have a ton of idols under their
Oh.
roster, like all the idols from Lowen, sorry. So
Yeah.
IU.
Mm.
IU
Yes.
is from
IU,
her
my
parent
favorites.
company is Kakao, and
Mhm.
I would say probably 40%, 30% of all the idols are under a company called CJEM, which is a huge mega corporation that owns tons of other companies in entertainment, and K-pop
Oh, I
is
didn't
just
realize
one
that.
one branch of CJEM,
Oh.
and
Well,
Ah.
it's interesting you mentioned Kakao, because just segue quickly to the comic part of our name. So Kakao has
Yes.
just come into America by buying Tapas, which is a web comics portal, and they also bought Radish, which is a kind of an online, and they just hired all these editors for the American comics industry. So they are like huge, they're pumping money into the American
Yeah.
comics industry right now. So, and I understand like,
really,
yeah. So because they want to apparently Korean companies are doing IPOs now in the United States, which,
Mhm. The Webtoons was starting
great.
a
Yeah,
couple 2 years ago.
Well,
Yeah.
they're very fiercely in competition
Oh
with
yes,
WebToon, which is
yes.
owned
Yeah,
by
they are.
Naver, which is
Yeah.
another gigantic Korean corporation. So,
Yes.
yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, I knew Kakao was a gigantic media conglomerate, but I
Mm.
didn't know they were huge into idols and K-pop. So,
Yeah.
thank Paul, you've just
Yeah, I knew
educated
that a little
me
bit,
on
but yeah,
that.
I didn't
Yeah,
know that much. Wow, that's amazing.
yeah,
no,
Um,
Kakao is huge.
yeah,
yeah.
I want to go back to what we were saying about like second generation. One of the things I found really interesting was we talked about this when we were covering Train to Busan, because Ansoi from Wonder Girls was in it, and Wonder Girls was one of those groups that was really big. But then JYP, who had a vision to conquer America, sent them there. They were on the Jonas Brothers tour, and they were this really great group. I thought they had this very retro, sort of feel to them and their music, and it was really fun. I love Wonder Girls, and I think they're great. They have a lot of great like hit songs. But when they played Americas, you saw in one of those documentaries, like in the YouTube originals, they talk about it, where it's like, they're on the Wendy Williams show. Like no one knew who they were. When they played, like I said, they opened for Jonas Brothers, and they talk about how like it just failed. They didn't do well. Like it was a great experiment, but they lost steam in Korea because but it was a good sort of like let's open the door a little and see what happens. And unfortunately for them, it didn't do as well, and they're all doing fine. Like Ansoi's an actress, some of the other ones, have gone on solo careers doing other stuff. But yeah, but it was interesting how they tried to break that market, but just
Mhm.
America wasn't ready yet, I guess.
Yeah, it was Wonder Girls was JYP and pretty much all of K-pop's first
Mhm.
attempt to really get into the American market. And
Yeah.
yeah, the American market just at the time wasn't ready to accept,
Yeah.
I guess, K-pop yet. Um,
Yeah. It's like
that would
2007
still
or
we
so.
would
Yeah.
still need
Yeah.
another 10 years for that.
Yeah. 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 Because even like I said, when we talked about like everyone knew, whether you even listen to music or not, you heard Gangnam Style in
Mhm.
2012 when it came out. Like we all that became the biggest meme. We all shared the video. I did do like a little dive into that, into his stuff, because I thought he was, of course he's hilarious. We thought we're funny, and he wasn't your typical Korean idol. He'd been big in Korea for years, and he was older, like he
Yeah.
wasn't this like skinny, beautiful man, he was like a little chub on him, yeah, like he was, but he was entertaining. He spoke English. You saw him in everything from Ellen to Good Morning America
Yeah.
to every late night show. I mean, he was everywhere, and it was a phenomena. And I remember checking back into it, and like because I was like, oh, who's that really beautiful girl in his video? It's this famous K-pop star Hyuna, she's been in a couple groups and now is a very successful solo act, and she did a version of that song too, which I thought was really cool. And so I watched a little bit after that, but I didn't really fall deep into it.
I think if you look back at the first attempt of K-pop to come here, I mean, again, just as an observer, I mean, it's like we didn't have YouTube the way it is now, and I mean, that is what spreads all of this, this world media is just, it's a click away. It's one search away, and you can dive into any culture you like.
Yeah, for sure. What I found interesting too in that one YouTube documentary was that when is it June, who was with God, and he's American, but he moved to South Korea to become a star, and he's still pretty active. He has like a show on Netflix actually, what's it called, What's Up Mango or something like that, and he talked about his days and where they had that reality show they did. It was the first time any group ever did that, where they like basically it was like 5 Men and a Baby. So they had the group like take care of a kid, and it was a reality show, but they didn't script it. It was just them following him around. It became a giant hit in South Korea. And now you look every day, every idol group has their own reality shows in a sense they put together where they like follow them around. They're all have behind the scenes YouTube channels where when they're about to appear on a music show or a concert, they appear on variety shows everywhere. So they're in your face at all times. And Paul and I talked about this when I interviewed him for his book about how like they're just you made a really good point, Paul, about especially about female groups, about shelf life or something like that. We're like, might as well, you got to use them while you can, like, right? So that's why they appear everywhere, I guess, all the time.
Yeah, that's kind of what you mentioned about Blackpink House earlier. Mm-hmm. That was their kind of version of their reality show. And then they also have another one, Blackpink 365. Is it 24 365 or
24? Yeah, from the 24 365. Yeah, from the song. Yeah.
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 And then that's kind of the thing. That's kind of, I guess, what separates K-pop from a lot of other music is when people fall in love with the K-pop idols, they're not necessarily just falling in love with their music. There's so much other aspects about the K-pop idol that they're falling in love with. You're falling in love with the individual K-pop idol's personality. You're falling in love with their choreography. You're falling in love with the visuals. You're falling in love with aesthetics, the brand of the group. There's just so much more as a fan that you can love about K-pop than just like your normal Western artists. And it kind of, you've probably noticed, but K-pop fans are just so passionate about K-pop.
Very dedicated.
Yeah. Totally.
Even like the smallest K-pop group, even like the smallest K-pop group will have fans that are obsessed about them. You can liken it to, I guess, One Direction back in their heyday, or even like Backstreet Boys. Even just a small K-pop group will have that level of intensity as a fandom. And the bigger group that you get, just the more intense fans that you have. I mean, like you've seen BTS, and I don't know what really can compare to how the fans interact with BTS. I guess the closest example would have been like the Beatles back when they were at like they're very
they
prime.
Really are the Beatles.
Like because you've seen like Backstreet Boys, One Direction, NSYNC, and not even they had that level of intensity of a fandom.
No.
No.
Even like it's like Justin Bieber, Michael Jackson back in their prime.
But I think
that same level of fandom. Like BTS is clearly a level above that.
It's surpassed it. Yeah, it's surpassed it.
But I think part of the reason for BTS having such a passionate fandom, as again, just from my basic, outsider research, and the thing about the Beatles was, I mean, some were more successful than others, but they, after they broke up, they were only together for like 7 years, right? And they all went on and had very successful careers. They were all like, and even as a group, some of them wrote the songs. They all took turns writing songs. Ringo's might have been very simplistic, but that's okay. But they were all super talented, and with BTS, it's kind of the same thing. Like they all have different skills. They all and they write front different music, like they've all put out solo albums, and so they do have these very strong creative personalities. So there's a lot to dig into.
Yeah, for sure, and that's what I love about it, because it's just like it's and people say, like, yes, there are some groups where they just go out and sing and dance for sure, but so many groups are have allowed their artists to start writing, and like you look at someone like in G Idol, Soyeon, their leader, just released a solo, but she produces and writes some of the group tracks, and she's like 21 years old, and she's kind of a little baby beast. Like, she's pretty incredibly talented.
Mm.
And
Sounds
actually
amazing.
have yeah, I mean, she's been producing stuff since she was like 20 something, 20, and she's really smart and clearly very talented. And twice a lot of them start writing their own songs as well. Sure, the producers still have big writers in K-pop. A lot of American writers actually write for K-pop. American, they have a lot of I think a big one for YG, Becca Boom is pretty famous writer for them. She writes a lot of the Blackpink stuff. And but yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad you talked about fandom. I do want to talk about fandom, because in like like every company wants to like, there's a whole system, as we said, and part of that system is like, we're gonna create a fandom name. So the company comes out, let's say the three of us form a new group, you know,
And we're
we're
CBI.
yeah, there you go. We're CBI. This came out. Look at this. And so the company was like, okay, your fandom name is CBI. Your fandom name are the bees. I don't know.
Mhm.
You're the bees. Say bees, whatever. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Beyonce. Wait a minute. But yeah, yeah. Oops, maybe not bees. But yeah,
CBs. We're the
the
CBs.
CBs. There you go. The CBs. We're the CBs. So the fandom just becomes the CBs, and everyone. And I think it's so uh coincidental that BTS's fandom name is Army, because
Mm.
boy do they mobilize, and boy do they know how to, like, it's incredible. The fandom are such a big part of it all, because in Paul hit it right in the head, where he said, like, the relationship
Mm.
between them is so important. And that's why you all, you certainly hear American artists, oh, thank you, my fans. But like, you hear Korean K-pop artists always are like, the fans are why like clearly appreciate it. Yes, it's the company line, they have to say it too, but like, they have to, like, they do one-on-one, they have these one-on-one, like, a little V lives, they call it, like, where there's an app, V Live, where they go live either solo or the group is together, or just two or three from the group hang out and just chat to fans while they're commenting. And they do that. It's part of, yes, it's part of their contract, it's part of what they have to do, but it's like, that's another way that, as Paul was saying, that you get to know these people. Can you imagine Ariana Grande talking for an hour and a half to her fans? She would take 5 minutes to be like, I'm out. Like, you think about those, like,
Well,
games Jimmy Fallon plays and James Corden plays. These idols go on these variety shows in Korea, which are amazing, and they do those games for an hour and a half. you know, they would never see an American, TV show like that, where a giant group, like, or I don't know, like I said, Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift,
yeah.
groups like that, or people like that, performers doing that. So they have such a connection to the fandom, and the fandom has such a connection to them.
Or Eminem
Um,
going on a variety show for an hour.
yeah, you're like,
Right.
screw this, I'm out. But although
Yep.
interesting, there's a
Eminem playing
great,
little cute games.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, you see these. There's even like K-rap, I really love too, the Korean rap scene. But you see these, like, sort of like, and it is kind of like, there's a fine line of, like, maybe cultural appropriation with some of the Korean rap. But you see some of these ones that have this, like, really hardcore hip hop music. It's really good, but then they have these great personalities. You see them on these variety shows. Like, one of my favorite rappers, Nuxal. He's super big, but he's on this variety program called Saturday Afternoon or something like that. And this is silly, fun little, where idols and actors come on, and they play these games, and they have to guess song lyrics and everything like that. And he's hilarious, and it's really
Mm.
fun. He's cute, he's charming. But then he gets up and raps. You're like, oh, it's a different personality. And that's what's great about, you see, as Paul was saying, the idols with the reality show things they do. You see them on stage, and they're so dynamic. Like, you watch
Yeah.
Blackpink, and you're like, oh my god, these are
Yeah, they
badass girls.
but they're well-rounded performers,
Yes, for sure.
I mean,
Yes.
it's sort of more like what we would think of as, say an Elvis Presley, or,
Mhm.
going back to that era
Yeah.
of pop star, where they there's a certain element of manufacturing or managing
Sure.
or whatever, but you're expected to be a complete performer. You have to really, to go out there and do all that stuff. And, just to actually make the Beatles BTS connection again. I mean, obviously the Beatles were long before what we call the internet or social media, but, they were spun off to the great movies, A Hard Day's Night and Help, and, Yellow Submarine also. So, they would have, if you swapped BTS and the Beatles somehow in time, probably, would have, I mean, they're both products of their time, but very, very similar, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a good point about Elvis, because Elvis was in like 100 movies.
Yeah.
As well.
100
So
terrible movies.
yeah, I don't know. There's some good ones. I have a little soft. My mom's a big Elvis fan. There's quite a few Elvis movies I loved.
All right, Jailhouse Rock.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. I love Jailhouse Rock for sure. But yeah, the fandom, like I said, is such a great important thing. But also, it because of that, like there's so many things they've created out of the fandom. Like CDs are giant in Korea. Like they're dead here. They have been for years. But CDs are still a huge thing in K-pop because they release these. You probably have many of them. Explain a CD to me, like what comes in it, how it what's in it, and like
God.
Look at that. That's a CD.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Which one is that?
This is Blackpink's The Album.
Yes.
Albums and album sales are a big thing in Korea. I mean, not only are they collectibles, so I mean, obviously they're CDs, but nobody really uses the CDs to like play music. It's pretty much just a collectible. So you buy albums. So inside the album, there's like a little photo book, has pictures of your favorite idols, has the CD obviously, and then there's a thing called photo cards inside. And you've probably heard of like baseball cards, basketball cards.
Oh, they do the comic
trading
cards.
Yeah. So they have like their own system of trading cards, and they're called photo cards, and they're basically collectibles. And each member will have like 4 different photo cards for each album, and fans will go out and try to collect all of these photo cards. And in order to do that, you have to buy multiple albums. And people will do it as just, a way to have, a collection hobby. People collect buttons, pins, coins,
stickers.
K-pop fans will collect photo cards and
then trade them.
Kind of a way. Yeah, it's kind of a way the K-pop industry has made to get fans to buy albums and get fans to buy K-pop merchandise as they make them collectibles. And I mean, not only do fans have an opportunity to collect things and, I guess connect with their idol that way, but also album sales help K-pop like groups in different music shows and different awards. So that's another way K-pop fans can help their idols, is by buying albums. Like them buying albums actually helps their group become more popular. So like we mentioned earlier, fan service was a big, selling point of K-pop. And there's just so many different ways for the fans to connect and feel, I guess, close with their idol. And there's just so many ways for a fan to feel like they're part of that K-pop group. Whereas I guess like a Western artist, you don't really have that kind of connection with a Western artist. Like, even though like Western artists, like, I don't know, say someone like Taylor Swift says like, oh, you guys are so important to me, I love you guys. But there's not really like a true connection with them.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of just like a fan of Taylor Swift and she's just an artist. But for K-pop, it's kind of cliche to say this, but it really feels like you're part of that like companies, or not, sorry, that group's family.
Yeah.
Right.
Like what you're doing is really helping them, and what you're doing has a way that you can interact with them.
Yeah, and fandom has changed, has made him broken careers. I mean, something Paul and I talked about recently, like one of the most incredible music story of the year, not just K-pop music story, is Brave Girls. And briefly, I'll tell you, Heidi, if you don't know this.
No.
This group that was started in 2011, and they were a certain amount, but then like they went through lineup changes and had some modest hits. And by 2016, they had the current lineup of the 4 girls that are out now. And like I said, some modest success, but nothing big. And
nothing huge. I think like
nothing huge.
Their last album sold like 2,000 albums.
Yeah, which is
and
terrible.
That's it.
Yeah. So the current group had been together since 2016, the four of them. And so it's 5 years later, 2021, and then February rolls around and suddenly a song from 4 years ago called Rollin' starts rising the charts again. And no one knows why. They finally figure out that there's this website or YouTube channel, Viditor, who puts together these compilations of K-pop groups and songs, had put together this sort of like compilation of performances of Rollin'. And now because obviously South Korea, it's required to be in the army like that, so they have a military is big. They play like USO here. Many K-pop groups play military base all the time, and Brave Girls played the military bases, or very popular in the military bases. And I think, if I'm not correct, the editor guy or person who put together was in the military, and that's where I knew them from. Maybe. But
I would assume he was in the military because
yeah, well, yeah, of course, he's the male. Yeah, male. Sorry, absolutely, you're right. Sorry. But so this video starts rising, and so the song starts rising in the chart to the point where it does what they call an all kill on the charts in the Korean, and there's several Korean charts, meaning it was number one day-to-day streaming or something like that, and it like hit.
It was number one on 10 different music charts.
Insane. 4 years later, a song 4 years old. So because of that, and they were literally ready to disband. Two of them had already moved out of the dorms. That's another thing we'll talk about in a minute. Yeah, and one of them had like the week before the Yuna, the MacNay, the group, the youngest one, had put this video up saying, "Oh, I just got my like barista license, so I hope to make some good coffee for you guys. Come see me." A week before, and it's like, oh, so because of the success, they reformed them. They moved back in. They started appearing on these music shows, which again we'll also talk about, and they won their first music show award ever as a group.
Nice.
Yeah.
And to watch that win is so touching.
I think it was they have the record for the longest, how do you say this? Like the longest time to get your first win.
Yeah, your first
from
win.
debut until first win. I think it's 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. Yeah, because 2000. Yeah, that's right.
And what's funny is they came out with a single just a couple weeks ago, and they got their first win in like 3 days, 4 days, or something like that. Yeah. So they actually have the record for longest win, and shortest win of all time.
Nice.
Yeah, they're like it changed their life.
Yeah,
like the fans, or really one fan changed their entire life, and they talk about it a lot. You see them on these shows, and they're one of the most popular groups right now. And like you said, they released their first new album. They did have an album last year or the year before, We Ride, which also found resurgence. That song, it hit like number 5 or something like that on the charts afterwards, after Rollin'. And Rollin's a catchy tune, man. It is. It's still a bang, and I still play it. I'm like, Rollin'. I love that song. And the new one,
we've got
it's great. New one's great also. It's really fun. It's summery. It's sort of a little older school K-pop.
The final episode of this month is going to be Jimmy Aquino sings the greatest K-pop hits.
I've already got my outfits ready. Listen, I was a hip hop dancer. I'm ready. I got.
Yeah, live album.
Are you aware of the plastic pants, the JYP plastic pants phenomenon?
Yes, I am. I know Heidi. Tell her about it.
That is your expected outfit.
What is this plastic pants thing?
So back in like the early, I believe like early 90s, if not early 2000s, JYP, he had an outfit where basically he was just wearing pants of clear plastic. And he was wearing a black underwear underneath. Yeah. But like, I mean, you could see pretty much everything else. And that was his outfit. Just a pair of plastic pants.
And he brought him back recently with Mama Mia. That was great.
And until today, other K-pop groups and other K-pop idols will just like make fun of it and just like imitate it. So sometimes they'll do shows where they wear plastic pants, and it's obviously just to be funny and just making fun of JYP's plastic pants.
Nice.
He's like a multimillionaire. He's fine. He could take the joke. He's good. He actually seems like a pretty nice guy too. But
he makes fun of it himself also.
Yeah.
Like true. He came out with a single last year, I believe, and he brought back the plastic pants.
Oh, was it? Oh, yeah. Wait, not the one with Rain, or no, not the other one. Was it the other?
No. It's I forgot the name of the song.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I remember seeing that. I was like, oh yeah, I've seen that thing. But yeah, it's great. Explain really quickly, because the music shows and the concept behind that, and how they get awards for that to us.
So I mentioned earlier about K-pop sales. like album sales. So basically, music shows are weekly shows, and they determine who is the most popular, I guess, group and song for that week. And if you have, if you have the most popular song, you get an award, which is what Brave Girls got that one, what we were talking about earlier, and it was their first ever music show win. So it's fairly hard to get.
And they ended up getting like 6, I think total for that one song.
Usually only the really big K-pop groups, groups from the big 3 and Big Hit / Hybe will get music show awards, and then other groups will get it when they have a really, really, really popular song. And so the biggest factor is album sales, which is why K-pop fans will go out and buy multiple albums, not only to collect different collectibles and photo cards, but to give their group more points.
That is amazing.
They have them well trained.
Yeah, literally K-pop fans will go out and buy like 10 albums in order to try and help their group. I had a friend, she one time bought like 2017 albums.
Oh my God.
Not only to
17 is the name of a group, Heidi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not only to give like their group like more points, but also if you buy albums, you have a chance of seeing them in person at a music show. It's kind of like a lottery system. So the more albums you buy, the higher chance you have of seeing them at a music show.
So I just Googled while we were talking, like how much do K-pop fans spend? And I mean, it's like on average, it might be more than $1,000
per comeback, or just ever.
A year.
A year.
Yeah. So
not surprising.
Yeah. It's worse than Marvel Strike Force.
Right. Yeah. Well, interesting about the music shows. How many of them? There's like 4 or 5 music shows, I think. Or the Music Core, Inkigayo,
The Show,
and one other one, I forget. So there's like 4 or 5. So if I'm correct, when anytime a group has a new song out, I think there's like a 2-week promotion period basically for it.
More than that.
Oh, more than that. Okay.
It varies from group to group, but
okay.
It'd be around 3-4 weeks.
Okay.
Sometimes even longer.
Depending on the success of the song, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the main driving is album sales. That's like 60% of the criteria for most shows. Different shows will have different criteria. And then another one is streaming. How much plays they got on streams. YouTube views will also be a big factor to how much points they get, which is why I don't know if you ever heard the term called streaming. Basically,
what is that? Tell me more.
Basically, K-pop fans will go and watch a music video like multiple times on end to give their group more views. So people host what's called a streaming party, like, hey, let's get this video to 10 million views, or hey, let's get this video to 20 million views. And so they'll literally watch the video 20 times straight, 30 times straight, however many times it takes, and they'll get thousands of people to do that. So when you have 1,000 people and they watch a video 30 times, that's 30,000 views for the group. Or if you get 10,000 people and they each watch it 10 times, that's 100,000 views.
Hey Jimmy, we need to get a club for Comic Beat Insider.
Exactly. Everybody watch it 10 times each.
Everybody watch it 10 times.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, also it's like it's not like it's not work. They actually like in a new song comes out.
Yeah, they were gonna watch that music video 10 times in a row.
They were gonna watch it anyway. I mean,
So might as well do it together as a group.
I gotta say, since I've always been aware of this new group, Luna, and I know Paul's a huge fan. Their new song is banging. I've watched that video 10, 12 times already myself. I love that new Paint the Town. It's great.
Yes. By the way, you should stream.
Yes, we do a little stream. Stream Paint the Town.
Stan Luna.
I think that's Paul's favorite group. Luna's your favorite group right now, I think.
Luna.
Yeah.
So wait,
it's a great group.
No, wait. Let me ask you. Okay, so let me ask you guys this. So I remember the boy band era of the 90s, and I was an editor for Disney Adventures. And the teeny boppers, this has always existed. Tiger Beat magazine, the love, Harry Styles, like the love of the cute boy and all that. But it sounds like this is a little bit deeper than that. It's just like they're cute and they want to grow up and marry them. It sounds like what is it that these bands represent to the fans, do you think? Is it just the music, or is there more of a message to it?
I think it's what you said, Paul, where we get to know them so well from all the videos and behind the scenes stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like you're friends,
I mean, it's a common thing with everyone in this world. Everyone wants like a sense of purpose. Everyone wants to be a part of something bigger than they are. And for a lot of people, a lot of people's purpose is to be a part of like a big fandom and to help that fandom be successful.
So it's kind of like a sports team in a way.
Kind of.
Yeah,
that's the
really
biggest thing. That's the best thing that you can liken it to.
Yeah.
Your group, your favorite idol group is like your favorite sports team. Like for me, I love the Miami Heat. Some people love the Lakers, and for us, our K-pop group is like the Miami Heat or like the Lakers for us. We want to try and support that group. We want that group to win. We want that group to have as much, music show wins and have, a ton of awards at the end of the year and be super successful. And people want to be a part of something bigger than bigger than they are. And K-pop provides, I guess, that opportunity for a lot of fans. They get to help their group become super huge and super popular and find a ton of success.
Right.
Yeah, that brings up a couple points for me, actually. Yeah.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, because so we have the fandoms and the fan, what has become, and this is prevalent everywhere, but it's so much in K-pop, the fan wars. Now we've definitely seen like, it's like, NSYNC versus Backstreet Boys was a thing. I know that, but it's like, and it's something Paul and I talked about last time. It's like, can't you like more than one? And it seems like in K-pop sometimes it's not that way. They're like, it's either like there's always anti-fans trying to pit groups against each other too, fandoms against each other, and that's the other thing that's really big over there is the anti-fandom. Like people will go out of their way to dislike. Yeah, it is like you get like so Twice is probably the second biggest girl group in the world behind Blackpink, and they're wildly popular since 2016 when they formed, and or 2015 when they formed. 15 on the show 16. Sorry, that's what I was thinking of. they had a competition show called 16, and their fandom name is called Once, something like Once in Your Ears, Once in Your Eyes, something like that, and but then there's an anti-fandom name called Thrice. It's like, are you kidding me? That's crazy to me. It's like you hate something so much you want to be a part of a fan group for it. That just makes no sense to me. So but I mean, it started in the very beginning of K-pop when it was like HOT versus was it Sexies they reversed the Sexies, and they like back then they had like colored balloons would represent your group. Now they have this incredible thing called light sticks where every group has a light stick that's different shapes, different colors of light. You have your light stick, Paul? Let's see it.
You want me to grab one?
Yeah, let me see a light stick.
Whoa, look at him. Right on cue, man.
Yeah, look at it.
So this is
oh my God, I want one.
Yeah, but they're all different type. That's just for a particular group.
This is Blackpink.
That's Blackpink. Right here. That's Blackpink's light stick, and they light up.
I don't have batteries in it right now. Do you want me to throw one?
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, but it's like
next
time. Yeah. But yeah, it's really great. So you see at concerts, you see all these different fans waving those light sticks, and that's incredible.
Wow.
So that's a good side of fandom. I think it's great.
This is see now this is super interesting to me though, because I like fans are stands and all this like fandom through social media is so much more powerful now than it ever was. And obviously the way that the K-pop industry has mobilized and connected with the fandom is part of why it's so huge worldwide now, obviously. And that's really interesting actually, because it does sound like a lot more than New Kids on the Block.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I thought was interesting when Blackpink played Coachella and they killed. If you haven't seen that performance or two performances, they're amazing. And they won over America with that performance. Because like every variety, Rolling Stone, everyone was like, we're in. And Variety made a very good point. The reporter said, I looked around, I saw fans of all ages, they're like, I saw 50 somethings singing in Korean. And I'm like, that's incredible. And that's what I love is like when people are like, oh, make fun, aren't you too old for this? I go, no, because to me, it's something I want to ask you both. And obviously, Paul, you're younger, but it's like maybe you haven't. But I'm always interested when people stop listening to modern music. I never have. I still like Taylor Swift and and Ariana Grande and groups like that. And I'm a big fan of Stormzy. He's a rapper in the UK, and obviously K-pop. But it's like I've never stopped listening to modern music. My mom stopped in the 50s. Like she should have been a big Beatles fan. She was born in the 40s. Nope, she stopped at Elvis and Motown, which was great because I had all these great old records I would listen to. Friends my age stopped in the 80s. You know, they love
Well,
80s music. And they just like, modern music. I'm like, that makes no sense to me.
Well, there's a study that shows that people, their musical taste actually, like most people, the kind of music they like ends in high school. Like whatever music they were listening to in high school is the kind of music they like, and like the kind of,
high school
or
such
maybe
a blip.
college. Wait, I'll amend that because it's too. It's like
Okay.
college,
Right.
okay, but it's the food they were eating in high school. It's the kind of food they like all their life, and I mean, I've had an on and off relationship with music as a performer, as a, piano prodigy, all this stuff. So obviously it's a huge part of my life. So no, never. I never stop listening to new music.
Yeah, I didn't think you would. But
Yeah, I mean, I
but you
never,
find friends like that.
but I don't, but it's not like, I mean, I like my electronica, which isn't what it's called now. It's about like I wouldn't.
EDM,
I'd listen. Well, it is EDM, but it's like you listen. If Spotify in some ways is the worst possible thing for loving music because it's like it knows me better than any boyfriend who ever made me a mixtape. Right? It's like every Monday morning.
Spotify mixtape. Oh.
Yeah, but no, because every Monday morning you wake up and it's made your discovery music week for you and you listen, it's like, oh, I really like this. Then you hit like on that and then it sends you more. It knows you so well, but you never are like
YouTube,
but
like
it's
YouTube
not like, but it's not a great place for me to discover a band in the way where Jimmy comes to me and he says, I mean, well, Blackpink is a world famous band, but if a friend came to me and said like, oh my God, oh, I love this band. Have you heard? I mean,
check out Mamamoo,
yeah, touch out Mamamoo, or back in the 90s, like
or Stan
you heard
Luna.
Portishead, or what? Oh, I'm sorry, what?
He said Stan Luna.
Yeah, Stan Luna. Yeah, that's it, Luna. Well, now I got to check out Luna.
Yeah.
So, actually, can I know this is, again, I am segueing, I'm rambling, but I say when I dated this guy who was in a Jim Morrison cover band.
Wow.
And he
was not the Doors, Jim Morrison cover band.
Yes. No, the Doors. Oh, no, the Doors. No, he was Jim Morrison. I'm sorry. We called him fake Jim Morrison.
Okay.
But and he was younger than me. He was a little bit younger than me. And man, I couldn't get like the last band he was into. I mean, this is a long time ago. Like, 20 years ago, but the last band he ever listened to was Blondie. And it's like we couldn't even.
I mean, they're amazing, but wow.
Right.
Okay.
And he, he was a very good musician. He was a very good musician, a very good singer, a very good performer. But it was like he was so into that idea of, the music he liked and how it was important to him. And I mean, we didn't date for very long.
And that man's name, and joining us now
is
that
he's
guy.
One of the most famous Jim Morrison impersonators. I'll leave it at that.
Oh, wow. Okay, got to look this up. How about you, Paul? Do you still listen, besides K-pop, do you still listen to like modern American music a lot? And
I would have to have like, because I don't really listen to the radio anymore. I don't think anyone listens to the radio anymore.
Does.
So it's hard for people now to be introduced to new music that isn't already in their taste. Unless like you're actively going on Spotify and going to their like explore new music kind of playlists. Unless you're doing that, it's actually hard nowadays to find.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's like Spotify hands me this list, but it's not like, I mean, sometimes I'll hear a song that'll be like, wow, that's really great. What is it? And then I'll say, oh, who is this? But then you go on to just, and by the way, Spotify changed the way they show about, and I don't know why they did that, but now, and that you can't see all the songs on the list anymore, or all the albums, which to me is annoying because then you could like get a bigger glimpse of an act, I guess. But anyway, like you go on the about page of Spotify and it just gives you some canned thing that it doesn't necessarily connect with you, so yeah, it's not, but then of course, me, I love to Google and dig into things, and then I'll find out what this is and more about it, but it's not like I mean, a band, I mean, they've been around for 10 years, like 12 years, and so, but I just discovered this. I'm not saying I'm the most up-to-date person on earth, but a
Fair
band
enough.
that
No, I
I,
think that's a good point you both make.
yeah, yeah, is Burial. And you know,
Yeah, I don't
who
know them.
just,
Yeah. All right.
right. And well, they kind of started this movement called hauntology, which is like really eerie electronica with voices and stuff, and it's very, very strange, very powerful music. But you
Great
know,
nightmares for me then. So I
yes,
won't
it
be
is.
listening.
It is nightmarish music. Yes, that's what I like. But you know, it's like, oh, I've just found out about this. Like, why didn't you tell me earlier,
Yeah.
Spotify? You
Yeah.
could have been there.
Did any of you guys ever listen to like pop punk or like punk music back in the day?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I
Oh
was
yeah,
really.
of course.
I mean, I've always been a pop music person, but I also like as a kid, I heavily got into rap. Still, I'm into rap and hip hop, but also the punk. I slowly got into it, and like definitely like the old school
Yeah, I used to
groups,
be
Suicidal
a
Tendencies, and all these other
super
yeah.
I used to be a super huge punk fan. Like I wouldn't listen
Wow.
to anything in high school unless it was punk or like pop punk at the
Wow.
most.
Yeah.
And my feeling was like if it's on the radio and it's not punk, then it's crap. You know,
A
like
lot of people think
rap
that. Yes. Yeah.
rap is crap. That was
Yeah.
that was I was such a dumb high schooler, but that was like my way of thinking is like if it wasn't underground, it wasn't cool.
Well,
Yeah. A
But
that's
lot of people think that. Yeah.
yeah, but
and
I don't know how. I mean, I am definitely too old to understand how that works nowadays. So I don't know.
Well, that's my point about like even as a kid, I listened to everything. As a kid, I loved opera. I performed musicals. I love musical theater.
Well, you're a
But I
musician,
loved.
so
Well, I mean, in a sense, I guess. But
you
it's just
are. No,
like.
of course you're a musician.
But it's like I just enjoyed all time. I still enjoy all times. But I do understand Paul's thing about like, well, I just listen to K-pop, mostly right now because I feel the same thing. Since I've fallen into that well, yes, I still on occasion if I see a music show, oh, Ariana Grande's got a new song, or Billie Eilish is, oh, that's great, I'm gonna check that out, and I enjoy it. But
you don't stand it.
95 exactly 95% of my music listening is now K-pop.
where do you guys stand on Olivia Rodrigo?
Oh, I
Oh,
see. I really like her. I
love
think she's
Olivia
great.
Rodrigo.
Yeah.
Filipino.
Oh, that's
I
right. Of course.
cried.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
There you
Instant
go. Not
connection.
just because
Yeah.
of that, but she's incredibly talented.
Well,
Yeah.
but
She's very
I mean, it's
talented. Yeah.
interesting that, and this is part of our, I think our whole general discussion of K-pop as a
Mhm.
phenomenon is it is comparable to our system here, which is called the Disney Channel, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair
and
enough. Yeah.
so, I mean, so many
Or
of our
even
stars
Nickelodeon. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Nickelodeon, from obviously Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake
Sure.
and Christina
Christina Aguilera.
Aguilera
Yeah. Sure.
All
and
from the Mickey Mouse Club.
all for the Mickey
Yeah.
Mouse Club, yeah,
Selena
which is
Gomez.
Selena. Yeah, just I mean everybody,
Yeah.
like so many, and Olivia Rodrigo, she was on a show
Yeah.
too, right?
Yep.
Oh
Like,
High
yeah.
School
Yeah. Yeah.
Musical, the musical, the series.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. High
That
School Musical,
title
yeah.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Demi Lovato. Oh my God! I mean, like
yes, of course,
incredible. So
yes.
one of my favorites, actually. One of the most incredible voices out there. I love her.
Yeah, yeah, she is.
Worry about her, but I love her. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, but hello, Miley Cyrus. I
Of
mean,
course.
Selena
Yes.
it's
Yes.
go
Gomez.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I mean, all of our young girls stars come from Disney Channel,
Jonas Brothers. Jonas Brothers came.
Yes,
Yeah.
oh,
Same as well.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, so we have our
Same
own
idea.
method. Yes, our own method for doing it, and it's I mean, young folks want to find an idol, I think,
Hmm.
and it's a different kind of a fandom.
Yeah.
I know what I was going to say just about Olivia Rodrigo. I just think like she's a very polished performer, but she also has a um an approach that's just really just memorable.
Hmm.
It's really sad sack. you know, like emo core, I guess.
She just
Like
turned 18, so
I
yeah.
know. Well, she's right there in the world of teen angst, and she really
Yeah.
expresses it really well. So I'm not surprised she's so successful right
You
now.
know,
So
Yeah.
before you said forever, but now I drive alone past your street.
you know, so okay, again, I know we're straying, but just talking about this, like I was talking to my neighbor about driver's license, and um and she's like, Okay, so Jimmy, to your point, like she's younger than me, and she was like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "You don't, all right, you don't know." And so then I read her the lyrics, and as I read them aloud, I was like, "These are the worst lyrics ever." Like if you just read the words to driver's license, it doesn't even sound like a song. It's like one day I was getting my driver's license, and I went to, I was driving down the street, and I thought about you, and
oh, it's kind of sweet, isn't it?
There's so much emotion in the way that she sings it, and the way that the song is.
I know, but that's it. That's great performance.
Yeah. I mean, it really is.
It's just like a perfect song to just like touch every little, like, I don't know, 12, 13-year-old little girl's heart.
Yeah,
of what they imagine love is and heartbreak is.
Well, before she was even on SNL, they did a whole sketch about it, about the song. Remember, like a couple months ago, they did a whole sketch where they kept breaking into the song.
Yeah,
it was like just so wildly popular. But yeah,
but I will say that some of that heartbreak lasts until you're a lot older than 13.
That's true. That's right. I'm still dealing with it, but I do want to talk about before we get out here is that favorite groups. So obviously, like right now, we know that Paul stands Luna, but what are some going back to first generation to now? What are some of your favorite groups and why?
So I'm going to bow out, but in the next episode, I'm going to have some picks.
Excellent, great. Okay, Paul, what for you?
For first generation?
Yeah, just from first generation on, like from maybe each, like maybe a couple from each. I don't
know. So I mean, like I told you earlier, the first groups that really started standing was A-Pink and Girls' Generation, Soñoside. Yeah. Of course, 21. You gotta love 21 also.
Which is spelled T2NE.
2NE1.
Well, yeah, which is very clever. And their fan name also very clever. Blackjack. 21. It's great. 21. The Blackjacks. Isn't that great?
And then I didn't really start listening to boy groups until I started listening to Beast, now called Highlight, and Big Bang.
Oh, Big Bang. About them. Our friend Teresa said we better be talking about Big Bang on Twitter. When we said I'm like, oh yeah, they changed the game. Big Bang changed the game.
Big Bang was really the group that I guess popularized, I guess, the little hip hop and like pop K-pop fusion.
Big Bang, 21, Blackpink, all the same company.
Big Bang, 21.
Yeah.
They were like the ones that laid that foundation for that kind of, I guess, genre within K-pop.
All right, I just put them up on my screen, so I'm gonna go. I'm just arbitrarily.
Have you not listened to Big Bang?
No, I literally just know exactly what I've talked about, so I gotta get into it. I'm just getting in. I'm just getting started.
Listen to a song called "Fantastic Baby."
Oh, fantastic!
Bang Bang Bang.
Okay,
those are like their two biggest songs. Wow.
And they were gonna have a reunion at Coachella last year. They happened. Also, there's been a scandal. One of the members is no longer a member. He's involved in the Burning Sun scandal. That's a whole separate story. So they're down to 4 members. But like G Dragon, their leader, is an incredible producer. He produced a ton of their songs, wrote a lot of their songs. And he's done some stuff for Blackpink. And supposedly him and Jennie from Blackpink are dating right now. So who knows? Allegedly. Supposedly.
Which is all but confirmed already.
I know, pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
But no one wants to just come out straight up and say it.
Okay, I got one more question. I've been really so. How does this work though with like say BTS? I mean, do they date? Because I mean, it just seems like if they came out and said if they were dating, like girls would commit suicide because that has happened. Unfortunately,
topic for another podcast.
Yeah, it's a whole podcast.
Okay,
it really is.
But basically, what it is a lot of K-pop groups will have dating restrictions. Like twice, I believe it was 3 years.
They couldn't date
4 years. They couldn't date.
Not even allowed.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to go on dates, have boyfriends, and it serves two purposes. One, because K-pop fans, like how we mentioned earlier, they're super passionate about their group, and one thing that does keep them like passionate about the group is, I guess, the fantasy that they get to be together with their idol.
Unrealistic fantasy that they think they can be with their idol. Yeah,
that they can be with their idol, and so it feels
guys, it's never gonna happen. Okay, sorry.
It feels a lot of the fan service in K-pop, like the idea, like, oh, one day I can marry Jennie.
Yeah.
You know? And so whenever you see,
Yu Jong from Brave Girls and I are definitely dating. I don't know if she knows it, but we are.
like there's probably a 99.99999% chance that that's never going to happen.
Sure.
But K-pop fans like to keep that 0.00001% chance alive.
You're saying there's a chance.
but so when a K-pop idol starts dating someone, that 0.0001% chance goes to zero. So it pisses off a lot of K-pop
and they often
fans
get mad, and they
get super mad at both parties, the person that they're dating and the idol. And
there's a rare occasion where like people seem to be okay with G-Dragon and Jennie. People were okay with Gio and was it Kang Daniel she was dating? They seemed all right with that. But then other ones, like Paul said, they held protests. They want the person kicked out of the group. What was that one recently where it was a very small group, like 40 people showed up to the company.
The group wasn't small, but the people that showed up was small.
That's what I meant. That's what I mean.
The group was EXO, which is super, super huge group.
Yeah. The group that showed up.
One of the members got married. Yeah. And a ton of fans were pissed off about it. They're like, I can't believe that you would betray my trust like this. Like, how dare you fall in love and get married? Don't you know that you were supposed to marry me?
Yeah,
like,
it's insane.
What the frig is your problem?
I don't get that. It's like we all fall in love and have crushes, of course, but there's no way. Even when
how dare you not save yourself for some random person on the internet you never met?
It's like
Heidi and I,
Heidi and
I got to date Jim Morrison, so you know.
There you go, kind of. Yeah, you go. No, but like Heidi and I have interviewed several celebrities in because we deal with pop culture podcasts, like hundreds of them over the years, and it's like. And sometimes we become friends with them. It happens. But also other times when you're hanging out with them, I'm under no illusion I'm suddenly best friends with this person or they're interested in me beyond that. I'm like, oh, this was just an interview. They were just super friendly in the interview. They're gonna say we're gonna keep in touch, but it's not gonna happen. On a rare occasion, sure it does because you have a lot of mutual friends. But it's just like even just with friendship wise, like no, people, it's not. I'm sorry,
unless
it's not gonna happen, guys. Smith. Right, exactly. Well, he and I are kind of pals, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
No. Feel that way.
No, I was going to say Kevin Smith, he met his wife because she interviewed him for like USA.
Oh, yes. Yeah, true. Fair. Oh, you're right. Yeah. But he also is the type that like kind of meets you and he's like, you're my friend. He makes you feel that way. I've interviewed a few times and he's like, I know you. Oh, you're Jimmy, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, cool. Right on. Yeah. But yeah, so what are some of your other favorite groups, Paul?
So, I mean, in the current generation, of course, I love Twice.
Yeah.
Love Blackpink. Love Luna. Mm-hmm. A new group that I really, really like, and I think they're going to be the next big thing in K-pop. They're a group called Weekly. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
They're interesting. Yeah, no, because they have an interesting concept how they came together, too. But yeah, I didn't love the first song. I was like, oh, this is cute and fun. They have that sort of cutesy concept right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do like their newest song called After School.
So, the new one.
So, if there was ever a time when we needed to share our screens, man, it's for this episode because I'm looking at a photo of Weekly. So there's 7 girls and they are wearing like schoolgirl outfits. Yeah. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna do.
That's really big, and that's really big in the K-pop. Female groups almost always have some point where they wear a schoolgirl outfit because that's like the Korean
the schoolgirl outfit is like a staple in K-pop.
Well, even the schoolboy outfit is pretty staple for the male groups.
So each K-pop group will have at least one music video or one comeback where they're wearing a school school
exactly. Yeah, there's even a variety show where well, who do you think, man? But
there you go.
There we go.
Weekly, very cute.
Mark my words. Next big thing in K-pop.
All right, there we go.
They've got a lot of buzz behind them for sure. I feel like aespa ITZY's already kind of pretty big, but I think aespa's going to be pretty big. I think they're
it's kind of cheating when you're from a big 3 though.
It's true. No, you're fair enough. Yeah, Weekly's not with them. Yeah,
like you're kind of handed to success.
True, fair enough. You have all that history and that money. That money
like
behind
when
you,
you're not like when you're not a big 3 group like Weekly, you almost have to
the grind,
crawl and claw for that success.
So do they? I mean, there must be flops too, right?
Oh, there's tons of flops.
Thousands.
I mean, even from the big 3, right?
New groups come out every week.
I don't remember the exact number, but I think like every year there's like 1,000 new K-pop groups.
Yeah, they do.
Only 10 or 5 will make it successful.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Out of those 1,000 groups.
Yeah. Yeah, it's insane. Like, and then or you get ones who last like. IU, who's like the nation's little sister, they call her. She's the one. She's also an actress who's been she's a really good actress, and she's only 28 now, but she's been in the business. She was 15, but when she debuted, no one liked her. She was like one of the worst debuts apparently, and like didn't do well. But stuck with the grind, and it slowly got really popular. And she's probably one of the most popular solo artists in K-pop history. And it's like, and has transitioned into acting, as well, and still does both, and still very young at 28, doing that. But in the K-pop world, that's tough, especially for a female going past a certain age.
Well,
That's what's so great about Brave Girls. Brave Girls is all
that's what made Brave Girls so
amazing.
special.
Yeah,
they were one of those 1,000 groups that weren't going to be successful.
Yeah, and now they're 28 to 31 years old, which is ancient for females in K-pop, and they're one of the biggest groups right now.
The oldest member of BTS is fast
29,
speeding towards but he's speeding towards 30. Woof.
Yeah. Well, they also a lot of them are about to go into military service, which they haven't done. Yeah, so that's a big controversy and a big talk in Korea. And I would do that because a lot of times they will exempt some celebrities from, but it's mostly sports people. I feel they do, but they've never really done music groups or musical or singers at all. So people are like, they bring in $5 billion a year to the economy. Like, I feel like they could be, exempt, but then they're like, of course, we're ready to go in. We'll go in. It's our duty. But
the thing is, like, the sense of duty of serving in the military is so strong in Korea. And if you like take some way out to not serve, people will hate you. Like the Korean public will crucify you.
Yeah.
So I feel like even if BTS is given the option to be exempt, they probably might not take it.
They just shouldn't all go in at once.
Because of the public.
No, they won't go in at once. They won't, because they're different ages. Yeah,
stagger it. Yeah,
just that's what's gonna happen.
So the only way I feel like BTS to not serve is like the government would have to make it mandatory that they can't serve.
yeah, exactly.
Not like, hey, here's an option. You don't have to serve if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But
we're not allowed
to take that option. The public will be like, "Oh, why are you guys being cowards and not serving?"
Yeah, I think
they'll be like, "We're not allowed to against the law." So, and like, we're also bringing in $5 billion a year. So,
so that's the only ways the government would have to make it mandatory for them not to serve.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about, just going back to history real quick, because that, like, back when the democracy happened, like the president at the time created this thing where they basically said that they call the Hallyu wave, the Korean wave, where they're like, we need to expand our culture and arts and everything out there. And that's how they came up from one of the poorest countries in the world to one of the richest. And it's like it's an incredible story of how South Korea turned itself around.
And it's just it's doing very well. I mean, we talked about this on the podcast, obviously, for for May, but there is, this Naver versus Kakao in the webcomics. I'm telling you, keep your eyes peeled. There's a lot more coming.
Happen. Well, real quick, I want to mention some of my favorite. Obviously, Blackpink, we know. And I like Paul, I'm still slowly getting into the male groups. I've been more into the female groups because from there I went to I wonder why. But I've always even I was a big fan of all the American female groups, and In Vogue, still one of my favorite, like that.
I love In Vogue.
I was like, all these, even going back to the Motown era, I loved all the female groups there too. But I think I just like female harmonies better. I don't know, maybe that's it. But some of my favorite groups, obviously Blackpink and like old school 21, I still love. I still listen to their music. But most of them, like Paul, because I'm so new to this, only like 2 years in, are from the current third generation into the fourth. So Twice, of course, is great. Red Velvet, I've only got into the last year, and they're considered one of the top probably 3 groups in Korea right now. They have such a great variety of music, and that's the thing about K-pop too, is like each group plays so many different styles of music. It has a similar idea, but there's different, like Red Velvet will do these really different styles of music. And then Mamamoo is one of my favorites, probably second behind Blackpink, my favorite group, because they're all really good singers.
They're all amazing.
Yeah, and they're known for their vocals, and they have these incredible harmonies, and they've all done successful solo stuff already, and they've been together 7-8 years. It's the 7th year now, and they're still going to stay together, even though one of them didn't re-up with the company. They're still going to perform together as a group, and they have their solo. But their songs, like they're one of their first hits was very jazzy, like Mr. Ambiguous was like this really jazzy sort of quality to it. That's the hip era. So hip was that came out like 2 years ago. Hip was one of their biggest hits.
All
Yeah.
right, well, that is Mamamoo.
Yeah, Mama
That
is
is Mamamoo
incredible.
behind. Yeah, but you can see they're quirky. You can see they're
Well,
quirky.
this is yeah. Like I said, then you go back to another picture. They're in these nice little dresses. Another picture. They're a little more soft,
Well, we have to do a
tones. But
slideshow
yeah,
next time. Next time
yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna do a deep dive,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna put together a slideshow for next
Yeah.
time.
But also, what's great, I've discovered groups from just YouTube suggestion, but also like these variety shows or some of these reality shows. Like I got into a few of the group groups because of the show they did in 2019 called Queendom, and I started watching on YouTube. It was like a competition of older K-pop female groups, and there's a male version called Kingdom, in newer ones. So it had groups I didn't know Mamamoo. I only knew Park Bom because she appeared solo because she was in 21, and then they had Mamamoo, Oh My Girl, Lovelies, AOA, and did I say Oh My Girl? Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think that's it. Oh, G Idol, yeah, Idol, yeah, Idol was like the newest. They were like a rookie group at the time, and they were already very successful, becoming successful. And Mamamoo won, and rightfully so, because they were incredible performances. Watching I Miss You on that, it's like tears. It's so beautiful. But because I'm like, oh, these other groups seem cool. Let me check out AOA before Jimin fell into the bullying scandal.
R.I.P.
Yeah, and like some of their stuff's pretty cool. And then Idol, I was like, wow, Idol's really good. And there's a newer group, and Soyeon's the one we talked about earlier. She's the leader, has a new solo out, just came out today. But then Oh My Girl, I checked. I was like, I don't think I'll get into this. It seems sort of sweet and cutesy type, and I like the more hip hop oriented. But then their music styles progressed too, and then they had a giant hit after that show. Because that show they had a resurgence. They had a giant hit called Nonstop, and then Dolphin, and now they're pretty big again. So that's what I love is like they have all these different styles of groups, um, and within those groups have different genres they'll cover. So it's always kind of really fun. Like, what are they going to come out with next? Like what are you doing there?
You're a
So it's really,
stan. He's a
I am,
fan. He's
and
caught up right in that world. Yeah.
when did that term? That's always not sat right with me because Stan obviously comes
I
from
don't like the term
it
stan
comes from
either.
the Eminem song
It comes
about
from
an
the
over
NMN song
crazy
Stan.
obsessed fan who kills
But yeah,
himself.
and
In a sense, it's
it's
like,
funny to me that
how did that become a thing?
it's funny to me that term has
Not
become
just K-pop, it's everywhere.
oh
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
used
yeah,
universally in fandom,
yeah.
and like people say I stand this or that, and I'm like, well, the
I
origin of that
stand the
term
Knicks. They're like,
is
okay,
very, very negative and dark. So
and that's
okay.
something we may talk about in other shows, like the dark side of K-pop is just like the what they call the songs, the crazy over obsessed fans
Oh.
who there's been kidnappings, there've been all sorts of things happening like cyberbullying.
Well,
There's a lot.
we have a lot to talk
Yeah,
about. We
yeah.
definitely have a lot to talk about here, just because there's so much lore and
Mhm.
mythology,
Yeah,
and we didn't even talk about the dorms. So next time we got to get
yeah.
into
We'll definitely get
how
into that. Yeah, the
the
dorm system
lifestyle and
for sure.
the system, because it's fat. Just even the very cursory look that I've done is like it is a
It's
gigantic world.
fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's really great.
fascinating.
But
It
yeah, we
is.
should wrap it up there. Wrap it up here. But yeah. I mean, I could talk about this for
Yeah, Jimmy can talk
till
about it
tomorrow.
forever. Have you noticed that,
For
Paul?
days.
Do you find real quick? Do you find your obviously you do it with your channel as well? But I find myself I talk about it to friends. I'm not just like constantly guys this and that, but I do my hey, do you check this out? And but people I've been turning friends on like Ricky, our friend who was supposed to appear today but had a last minute emergency, couldn't make it. He's been dipping his toes in and is a giant. It's suddenly become this big BTS fan. He really likes Black, so I constantly am sending him videos and links, and we have these long discussions in emails about. He's like, why do you think they're so big and they're not? And we like talk about. It's really fun to
Oh yeah.
go through that. So I have a good time. You find yourself with friends that have never heard of like, hey, maybe check this out.
Oh yeah.
Don't be so
Absolutely.
close-minded. That's what kills people. Like, oh, it's garbage. Don't.
Are you part? So, just real, I know we do have to wrap
Mm.
this up, but just real fast though, Paul. I mean, you do what you have your own YouTube channel, right?
The
I
Asian
do.
theory.
What is that about?
Yeah.
What is the topic of your show?
So my channel is called The Asian Theory, and it's a celebration of everything Asian: entertainment, culture, history, current event in the news. So Asian entertainment is a big chunk of my videos, and that includes K-pop.
Right. Fantastic. Wow. Well, everyone should absolutely check it out. But if you are um like like, what's a good way to get into K-pop fandom besides doing what we're doing right now and just talking about who the bands we like? I mean, is there, I don't know, message boards, Discord? Is it Discord or is it Tumblr or?
There are different Discord groups. There's a bunch of Reddit groups also. You can find groups on Facebook. Twitter, I would not recommend, but K-pop is a big part of Twitter nowadays.
Oh yes, it is. Yes.
They've shut down rallies. They're amazing.
Yeah. TikTok, I know, of course, is like its own thing also.
And then, but I mean, the biggest way to get into K-pop is just watch the music videos. I mean, that's how I found A-Pink and Sonia Sude, is just watching a random video on YouTube. So that's the easiest way is to get into K-pop. Just go on YouTube, type down Luna Paint the Town, and just watch the first video that comes up.
Yeah, but then you also find yourself, like I'm sure Paul as well, it happened with him, although he got it a lot earlier, is that I started Blackpink, then Twice, and Mama Moon, Red Velvet, oh my god, then BTS, these other ones. But then they're like, oh, you see these variety shows where former K-pop idols, I'm like, oh, what group are they in? 21, oh my god, 21's amazing. Oh, Big Bang, holy crap. And
then
you fall back into these older groups, you're like, wow, then some of them are active solo or transition to acting, like
do
Girls'
it, man.
Generation.
Don't do it. It's going to consume your life.
Yeah,
it already is.
Oh boy. Yeah, I would say, Paul, I don't know.
All the time you thought you had in your life is all now gone.
You should see my YouTube recommendations as pretty much 95%.
I don't know how much you talk to me, but we do this show every week, and I have seen the signs.
Yeah, it opened up her eyes. She saw the signs.
Get out while you still can.
Oh no, I'm sticking with it. I love it. Yeah, get out. Yeah. Dude, I've turned on Friends.
Don't let yourself be ensnared.
My friend Dave Monteith in UK, who's my age, and again, we're old. It's okay to like things that are modern. It's okay. He was doing a play. He's an actor, and he was away doing a play. And I told him, I go, you gotta watch this video. To. And then like him and the entire cast were like, what is happening? And they were like, they made a video for me. Thank you so much for getting us into Blackpink. We're now all like watching all their videos and everything about them. Like the entire cast was like aged 18 to like 50. And they made this whole little video about how much they loved it. I was like, oh, that's so awesome. Yeah.
That's so cute.
I defy you to not to watch to not fall for
Well, I have a whole list of things that I have to watch.
Oh yeah.
Later tonight. So I got every tab was open on my Chrome. So
all right.
Descent has begun.
It has. Exactly. There we go. Goodbye, cruel world.
Yes, that's right. In hello, new, beautiful, amazingly, awesomely entertaining world.
Yes.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. This has been fascinating. Wow.
Yeah.
So great.
Maybe we'll try to get you on one of the other ones later this month if we can.
No, absolutely. It's a pleasure. Anytime you're going to talk about K-pop, I'll be here.
Excellent. I'll see if I can get BTS on. I'm sure they're easy to get hold of, and we'll talk to them.
Actually, let me call RM on speed dial.
Oh, yes. Oh, excellent. Yeah.
Hey, RM. What's up, bro?
Excellent.
We're doing this podcast. You want to jump in?
Jenny from Blackpink just texted. She's free.
Oh, Jenny.
Well.
Oh, shoot.
Well, I
actually missed our dinner appointment.
I have Psy is just sending me some stuff. Right, he's uploading some files for me right now. So
there you go. Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. And then again, this is always available on the Comic News Insider in a few days. We'll put it up just for you, like the Audible. Folks riding the train in your cars. People enjoying listening to that. We appreciate that. All this month will be K-pop month. Next week we're going to cover Blackpink. Again, I'm working on getting a former idol on to chat with, and then maybe the last one we'll talk about just all the difference we missed, the dorms, the darker side, the fun side, everything like that.
Side.
And I will see. But thanks, and I'm Jimmy Aquino with the podcast Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture. ComicNewsInsider.com. You can find me online at Jimmy Aquino, JIMMYAQUINO, on all the social media.
And I'm Heidi McDonald. I am the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com. And you can find me on all social media at ComicsAce, COMIXACE. And if you like this video or podcast, subscribe or hit notifications or leave us a very nice comment that's pleasant.
Yeah, and Paul, go plug your book too, as well as your channel.
Yeah,
where they find you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I run the channel called The Asian Tier. You can find me on YouTube. Just search The Asian Theory. And as Jimmy mentioned earlier, I am also the author of a children's book called Istaman. And it's just a story about a little Filipino superhero who accomplishes everything by trying his best and never giving up.
Wow.
So it has a little cute message to little children to follow their dreams and never give up. So that's on Amazon. Awesome. Just search Istaman and you'll find the book.
Awesome.
And how about, can people say hi to you on social media? Are you anywhere?
Yeah. So easiest way is my YouTube channel, but I also have an Instagram. It's just Paul Bacera, PAUL space BACERA.
Excellent. All right. Awesome. Nice. Thanks again, man. We really appreciate it. Bring your expertise.
Yeah, this
knowledge to it all.
So much. Really appreciate it.
Learned a lot.
Jimmy, just here we go. It has begun.
Yes.
It has begun.
Don't forget the finger heart. There you go.
I don't know how to
do right there is a shoe heart.
Yeah, the shoe heart. Yeah, the
I don't know how to do it. All right, I'm learning. All right.
All right, guys. Till next week when we hit you with that do.
See ya.